Okay, but here we are. Let's get started in this Zoom business. Let's get started with the open mic. Thank you, everybody, and I'm going to ask Roxanne Bodsworth as our first reader to step forward. Roxanne, aka Therese, is a poet, celebrant, and farmer. Wonderful. Who completed her PhD in 2020 at Victoria University by researching and writing feminist poetry in response to Irish mythology. She's widely published and writing keeps her sane, almost. Go, Roxanne. Thank you.
Thanks, Rose. And just that completion of that PhD was with a lot of help and inspiration from Rose as well. I might add this poem that I've just got one that I'm going to read tonight. And I thought with the launch of lockdown poetry that I'd look at one that was about freedom. It's a recent poem. Phil's the only one that's seen it out of this group, and it's inspired by Liquid Amber as well too. So it took me back to some memories. So it's about thinking back to a time when I was free. I had 2 Anglo-Nubian goats with floppy ears and warm breath. Together we would climb through fences, nothing held us in. We would roam hills, clamber over rocks, skip through streams, dodge snakes, laughing, wondering if my mother even knew we were gone. She didn't. Back then I could climb trees. My favourite was the Liquid Amber, smooth-limbed pastel branches. I loved the changing palette of the leaves twisting in the air, the green of fairy dresses, or the flaring into flames that did not burn but would fall, as I never did, onto the ground below. I would hide inside the canopy of branches, camouflaged by the flickering light and shade, living in a world apart, making my own rules. We moved to a new place, a treeless block of land. And though me and my dad, we planted trees there, they were too small to climb. And now I've grown too big to squeeze through fences. I have to open and shut gates. My goats are long gone and snakes scare me. I've been back to that block. The trees we planted grown big enough to hide a child, but I am no more that child, can no more hide from the world because I carry it everywhere like an overstuffed backpack that I'm scared to leave behind in case I lose everything. Whilst knowing that's what it takes to be free.
Thank you, Roxanne. Fantastic. I have to just admit too, very quickly, I have a poem about climbing a liquid amber tree too. So
yes.
I think we have a conversation to have about that. They were very good for hiding in, I found. Anyway, thank you so much. Okay, let's move on. Our next reader is Tony Mills, or given we're being formal tonight, Anthony Mills. Lives in the Southern Highlands of New South Wales. Before retiring, he worked in public health, in physical and mental health well-being. He now volunteers as a hospital chaplain. He has had a number of poems published in literary and online journals. Thanks very much, Tony.
Thank you, Rose. And strange as it may seem, I also have a poem about climbing a tree. There must be something in the air. Just to begin with, acknowledge that I'm sitting on the land of the Gundungurra people, and I pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and I have 2 short poems. The first one is called My Grandfather's Coat. After you had died, picked out from the pile destined for the charity shop. A welcomed fit, it whispered escape time, years woven upon years. From the shadow of your old age, we leaned into winter sun. Skin eroded, hands like maps, face crazed, voice story shine, coat raising memory to light. On its sleeves, the shuddering forest, sky breaking in where trees toppled, wheedle of whistle and whip crack, bullocks laboured under logs, tearing muscle up swelling hills. The long fingers of dusk, glass-winged dragonflies trickling over creek flats emerged from pocket flaps. Firelight dogs, flat and breathless, heavy with dust. The crackle of voices sparking from dark swags, blue night stitched with loose scent of rain. A long silence, and I would look to see you distilled to light, closing in bright sun. And the second poem is called The Treehouse. From the top branches, entangled among sails of cloud, I could look over the whole lacklustre suburb toward a hazy, incomprehensible future. I lived behind a dream, a wall against the dictatorship of repetition and dark noise of the world. A soft-boned tendril, I climbed far, breaking through sky to enter silence and secret, the world turning soluble below. Houses crouched under shadow, TV's blue webbing windows, the acrid sweat of traffic staining air, light snaking in pools. I climbed down each evening to dinner among flatlanders, weighted by exile, stuttering over my day, I endured the burden of the grounded. Later, the tree struck by lightning shattered across our yard. Sentenced to ground, lost to sky, I spent days sawing firewood. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tony. Wonderful images. The burden of the grounded. Wow. Really enjoyed that. Thank you very much. Okay, let's move on to Davina. Davina Bedford. Yep, there she is. She's a model, an actress, a newspaper executive in previous lives, very colourful. Moved to Sydney from Melbourne a decade ago and reinvented herself into photographer, writer, poet. I love it. Won International Women's Day Art Prize at the Tap Gallery and has done a number of exhibitions and solo shows right up to 2019 in Sydney and Melbourne. She made comedic kitchen and beauty tips. Gee, I think I might need to know about that, as Domestic Debbie. And read her original poetry around 50 times around clubs, cafes and venues in Sydney. So thank you very much, Davina. That's a lot to live up to.
Hello, I'm a busy bee. In fact, I was born Debbie, which in Hebrew is bee, busy bee. So thank you, Rose, for this opportunity. And I would like to first say that I'm in Emerald, which is Cardinia Shire, and it's located on the traditional lands of the Bunurong, Bun, Wurrung and Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. So I pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging. And look, it's been a long couple of years for all of us, but in the beginning, I think I felt we were all in it together. It was kind of a unified feeling of we can get through this. And so I was a bit shocked that all the different states had different, well, the premiers mainly had different ways of dealing with it, and very confusing. So I wrote this maybe a year and a half ago, and it's called The State of Coronavirus. And it goes like this. Whatever happened to we're all in this together? It's a case of dog eat dog, whatever. Gladys says we are in a much better position. It's not just speculation or superstition, for we have the whitest sand in the country, the harbour, the ocean pools, all and sundry. Anastasia Palaszczuk says they come first, Queenslanders first, locals come first. She doesn't want a possible viral outburst. South Australia won't let anyone in. To be proletariat there is a sin. Tassie's fine. They've closed the border to the filthy states, while Northern Territory, it never even rates. Mark McGowan is so far out west, he thinks his decisions are best. And poor Dan, he took a thrashing for his severe stance when marvellous Melbourne could no longer dance. The aim of the game is to get on the beers, kill that coronavirus that attacks all our fears. The so-called unity of a nation has resorted to condemnation. The dobbers are out in force when we should all be indoors. We are as together as the rabbit and the guinea pig. Survival of the fittest, that's the new gig. Our unified nation, once held together, torn apart in this pandemic weather. Social distancing is not conducive to togetherness. It breeds separatism. Now, I don't want to sound alarmist, but it seems individuality has been replaced by the conformist. For we must abide by the new rules for all, and if we don't comply, the entire country will fall. It's not that hard to do. In fact, it's really very simple. Designer masks are the new fashion symbol. It's the new little black dress, and not a bad look, I must confess. We wash our hands and keep our distance, don't put up any resistance, and eventually we'll beat this silent killer and come back together to end the thriller. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Davina. Fantastic. And hey, isn't it crazy how things have changed? You know, state of coronavirus, but you know, that was last year. Things have really, really moved.
They did.
Thank you very much.
Good again, I hope. Thank you.
Okay, all right, let's move on. Our next poet is Stephen Smithyman. Stephen is a retired school teacher living in Melbourne. He's published 2 collections of poetry and is currently working on a collection of short stories. Thank you, Stephen.
I'm going to read another lockdown poem. So see if you can recognise which stage this was at. It's called In the Meantime, 70th birthday poem for Joy. Your 70th birthday was passed in lockdown. After the early morning greetings and presents, it rained the rest of the day. At night, there was a vegetarian feast with French champagne. I gave you a ring, as round, golden, and perfect as the 0 in the number 70, to give some recognition to our rather informal union after all these years. We dreamed of warmth, but had to cancel our holiday in the Whitsundays. Still, we weren't as badly off with all our cold and wet as those poor souls deluged and flooded in New York, Germany, or Japan, victims of rapidly progressing climate change, or even those engaged in a struggle more serious than ours against the new and highly infectious Delta strain as it spreads through the poorer suburbs of Sydney with no apparent end in sight. What with that and the wildfires burning out of control on the west coast of the US and in Siberia, it's hard not to feel we're in the legendary last days, which have been expected so many times, but never quite arrived yet. Let's hope not this time either, though we can always turn that around and ask more personally, how long will our days last? Not too much longer, we conclude, as we approach our final quarter, the home stretch, or however else we may want to describe it, to decorate or disguise the plain, unvarnished, less than comfortable truth. Still, we've got each other, our family and our love, which may not be as imperishable as that gold ring I gave you, but is enough to be getting on with in the meantime. And so I wish you much love, good health and happiness, long as your days last, as long as our days together last, leaving disease, lockdown, and terrible bad weather far in the past.
Thank you very much indeed, Stephen. Sounds like a good celebration.
Yes, I'm not sure how much faith I have in that last line, though, after the debacle of COP26. I'm not sure we're leaving the terrible weather very far behind.
Yes, quite. Thank you very much. Okay, let's move on to our next reader, which is Helen Bradwell. Yes, there she is. Helen Bradwell's poetry is drawn from life. Hurrah! And from a love of lyric forms and old stories. Her writing has won the Nillumbik Poetry Ekphrasis Award and the Ada Cambridge Prizes for Poetry and Biographical Non-Fiction, and has been shortlisted for prizes including the ACU, MPU and Martha Richardson Awards. She lives and teaches in Melbourne's western suburbs, which makes me feel like, why have I never met you, Helen? I'm in the western suburbs too. Thank you very much.
Thank you. First of all, I'm speaking from Boonwurrung country, the land of the Yalukit Willam people. Thank you for tonight. I'm looking forward to reading the anthology. I thought I would start with a pandemic poem, and this one was written last year. It's a dramatic monologue of sorts. It's inspired by the scenes in the thick of things last year of the ambulances queued up in New York City. But I have drawn on the old Selkie stories as well, because I found it so hard to deal with all of that reality head on. So it's called Paramedic. Nearing the end of a shift, I was taking the corners fast with the empty sidewalks looming at us from a thick river fog. A morgue run, the last that icy night, no moon and my vehicle running on empty. We carried out the stretcher. It felt light. A corner slithered from my grip. It tipped down and the blanket slipped to show a pallid foot. Behind my safety guard, I blinked. It's hard to tell you what I saw. The pale webbed swirl of flesh between her toes. Delicate whirls of lucent membrane. Surely some ancient magic. I cursed my clumsy fingers, felt all the coarseness of my paramedic gloves, raged at the freezing blast of sleet that dared to wet the luminous flesh. I glimpsed the dogged appetite of death, with its imperative to thresh out all our hidden stories. This wonder bared, and me with all my imperfections spared. And this one, second is a short one, which I've only just written, and this feels more like a poem of renewal. It's called A New Leaf. Such days feel anesthetic, senses numbed, and is it any wonder words seem flat? Yet every day fresh weeds break through loam, fine roots sink deeper, gripping dust, and from each node small petioles in steady rush unseen. Then leaf blades show, still furled, and all this blind green life straightening all leisurely the way my dog yawns of a morning. We are clumsy mass, our eyes won't catch the soil's load, settling by wormlight in readiness. The moment the new leaf uncurls and light first celebrates pale veins, illumines worlds. Unnoticed too the heart's slow healing, the darker rings that go on forming in the bowl year after year, that thin in time of drought or malnutrition, but ripple outwards, sturdy in the living wood. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Helen. Absolutely beautiful. Yeah, glorious poems, and amazing if you've just written that last one recently. That seems to have come fully formed just about. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to Anne Carson. There she is. Here is Anne. Anne's most recent publication is Massaging Himmler, a poetic biography of Dr. Felix Kersten. She's initiated a number of poetry-led social justice projects. She performs with Muse Poetica and is a PhD candidate at RMIT. Thank you, Anne.
Lovely to be here. Thanks to Rose and Pauline and their wonderful venture. And I feel like this is a sister poem to Helen's just now. It's called Aperture. The manna gum in the middle paddock leans leafless into a dusky sky. Wood, wind-scoured and bleached. In the slow motion of falling, it tilts towards the rimless world. From inside the outermost branch, two small black shapes emerge. Perhaps they pause on the lip to reconnoitre, but I see no hesitancy, only eruption into flight. Microbats, 2 scouts followed by 20 others, a flowing stream of silhouettes, backlit by the disappearing sun. They move like soapy bubbles forced from a ring, as if the tree itself opens an aperture, pushing them into life. They could be eggs the tree spawned, or black blossoms the wind took from the tree's still giving arms. All I can say is, from the darkness of sapless timber, life teemed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anne. And some of us in the room tonight were fortunate enough to workshop with that very poem with you on Sunday. So wonderful to...
And I'll just say that it is a better poem for that process. So thank you all.
Oh, aren't they all, Anne? You know, I think there's one thing all of us know who write. You know, it's as soon as you have the opportunity for close reading and listening and conversing about a poem, it can only improve. So yeah, wonderful. Thank you. I'm going to hand over to Lynn Chatham. Hi, Lynn. There you are. Up on our big screen. Lynn Chatham is a reviewer and judge of the Yeats Poetry Prize for Australia, and her chapbook Artisan was published by Melbourne Poets Union in 2018. Thanks, Lynn. Over to you.
Hello, everyone. It's really a great evening. I've got 3 poems, but I have timed them, and it's just over 3 minutes, so hopefully it's all right. Okay, the first one is called Virus Time. This is not in the collection, but I had one on the virus, so I thought I would read it. Okay, Virus Time. Anzac biscuits, immune defense horse pills from ethical nutrients, armor force for biocuticals, protect me. Bears in windows and trees, brown and pink, somewhere over the rainbow. Blue ribbons on picket fences, GoFundMe 4 funerals, full-bodied suits, perspex. Donald says to drink Dettol. Kim is missing, not Kardashian. Zoom, zoom, zoom. Beautiful bar graphs, airport happy, roads lonely. What fires? The next one is also a bit gloomy, but it's the 20th anniversary this year of a friend of mine who was killed just near Launceston. So this is called The Visit. An old woman coughs and leaves. The door cries like a cat. 2 women with cropped hair, genuflect, say the rosary in front of St. Teresa. Red carpet, kneeling cushions red. Bird of paradise you would have liked. The women leave and I'm alone. It nearly killed me when you died after that drunk rammed you near town. You were just in to get some compost for your crazy path. And the last one is a lighter one, and it's called Rows of. Rows of fruit trees in netting, like skirts of 60s frocks worn by my sisters. Rows of lilies like French nuns, burgundy and green, praying in the breeze. Rows of Woolies bunnies in foil. No use waiting for a twitch. They're dead already. Rows of cream-coloured cupcakes, stiff with gelled haircuts, like wonky wooden houses. Rows of Nescafe Gold, like Campbell cans and Maryland's, trying to make my fortune. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Hardly over 3 minutes at all. Excellent. Much appreciated. Okay, and our next reader tonight is Lynette Hunter. Welcome, Lynette. Lynette is an indie, we've lost her for a tick, is an indie published performance poet and facilitator of writing in all its forms. Her poetry books, Word and Flesh and Capture and Flight, are slim volumes of brief, exquisitely observed moments of feeling and reflection. She's the designer and the maker of the Writer's Retreat Garden at her home in a small town in southwest Victoria, where she hosts Writers' Cafe and retreat days, which sounds pretty appealing. Okay, and it looks like we not only have words, but we have sound to go with them. Thank you, Lynette.
Thank you, Rose. Yeah, hello, I'm Lynette, and I'm speaking to you tonight from Gulajan country. I have 2 short poems. When a poem comes knocking, you have to be home. It won't knock twice. It passes through high walls, locked doors, deep water. But it is transitory, fleeting, gone in a breath. If you do not open your heart to its gentle call and, grasping your pen, capture it. In that living moment, hold it fast to the page. It will pass on in the space between one heart beat and the next. And it will never come calling again. Thank you. So the next one is called I Looked in the Mirror. I looked in the mirror and I saw a damaged woman. Damaged like a fruit that is too spoilt to be eaten. Damaged like a bird with a broken wing that can no longer fly. Damaged like a woman too afraid to love. And I said to myself, you can never get over it. You will never get over it. You should never get over it. You can never get over it. You will never get over it. You should never get over it. You will never get over it. You can never get over it. You should never get over it. Like a mantra of disbelief in self, these words haunted me. Until the day when my chest no longer tightened like rounds of barbed wire around my heart. My voice no longer caught in my throat My eyes no longer saw only scars in my reflection. And I was able to listen to the voice of wisdom from deep within, which said, "You don't need to get over it. This experience is part of you now. It is your beauty and your ugliness, your smiles and your sorrow. It's in the lifelines that others trace with trust. It's within you and binds you to every other soul who suffers. There is nothing. There is no thing to get over." And I looked in the mirror and I saw my self.
Thank you, Lynette. Wonderful. Well, there's a treat for the evening, another kind of treat for us. Aren't we lucky? Okay, let's move on. And our next reader is Mark O'Flynn. Hello, Mark. Mark tells me, and I'm reading in his voice, I would just like to preface that. Mark tells me that he spreads his creative energy far too thinly. His 6 collections of poems are the chapbook Shared Breath from Hope Street Press, while his 4th novel, The Last Days of Ava Langdon, was shortlisted for the Miles Franklin Award in 2017 and was winner of the Voss Literary Award. His latest book is a collection of short stories, Dental Tourism, from Puncher and Watman. And his play, Fitzen and Dan, has recently been shortlisted for the Silver Gull Playwriting Award, which all goes to show he doesn't know where to focus his attention. Or I could find other ways of describing that, Mark, you know, the Renaissance man with lots of energy. Thank you very much and welcome.
Thank you, Rose, and thanks for having me, and thanks to everyone as well around there. It's great to hear some fantastic poetry. The poem I thought I'd read comes from the issue of Rabbit that Trisha edited, so I thought that was a nice link there. So this is called, so it's a scientific poem, and it takes the form of a Year 9 science assignment. It's called Einstein's Brain. Introduction. First, Ned Kelly's skull, then Farlap's mighty heart, phrenology and the history of morbid awe. Next to be purloined for the purposes of research was Einstein's brain, plus his eyeballs given as a present to Albert's ophthalmologist. The hypothesis of the current study posits the question, why? Supposition, because. Method, with a saw, back and forth until the cranium popped. Cause of death, a burst aorta, taken straight from the autopsy by Dr. Thomas Harvey, realising who it was on the slab and what an opportunity this might mean for science. The brain, weighing an ordinary 3 pounds approx, was kept in a pickling jar in a cider box under a Budweiser beer cooler in Tom Harvey's basement for 23 years. Harvey's wife laid down an ultimatum. It's either me or the brain. He chose the brain. Results. Forensically dissected into 240 pieces, the brain became an even bigger jigsaw. Sent out on slides to labs across the country, they counted the neurons, glia, sulci, gyri, only to find, inconclusively, there were lots. The musical cortex, admittedly larger, that's what 10 hours sleep a night plus eating grasshoppers will do, which Einstein did. Discussion. He published nothing, Harvey. Gave away slices of it to casual fans. Did not sell it to the military who wanted it in order to defeat the Russians, themselves collecting brains of their own. Lost his medical practitioner's license, found work in a plastics factory in Wichita, eventually returned to Princeton, the brain in a tub in the trunk of his car, not so much at the speed of light, more the speed of a Buick Skylark in heavy traffic, all things being relative. Conclusion. Taciturn iconoclast, Harvey behind the wheel, getting too old to care for it now, wanting to donate it back, still listening for what the silence of the brain might have to tell him, what esoteric secrets of the universe, hopefully not in German, which, like the nurse who misheard Einstein's dying words, Harvey did not speak. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mark. Wonderful. Very enjoyable. Okay, let's move on to our next reader, which is Belinda Calderoni. Dr. Belinda Calderoni, let's get that PhD in, Belinda, that's always good to hear, is a Melbourne-based emerging poet and lifelong bibliophile who's often caught secretly smelling books. Remember when we all had hard copy books that we could smell like that? Her love of words has led her through a range of professions, including working in a bookstore, researching and teaching literature, and writing fundraising proposals for good causes. Thank you, Belinda. Looking forward.
Thanks so much, Rose. Thank you for having me back again to read a second time. And I have to say, it's just really an honour as an emerging poet to be in the company of such wonderful established poets. So thank you. So tonight I'm reading a poem I wrote a couple of months ago called Winter Bones. And I wrote this even though she's not identified in the poem. It's about my maternal grandmother. And I was thinking back to when I lived with her many years ago as a young teenager, and she sadly passed away at home from a heart attack. And I was just thinking back to that, and it just kind of came bubbling up and wanted to put it down. So I'll read that for you now. Okay, Winter Bones. In the quiet midwinter, you stopped, crochet unfinished, garden half weeded, laundry unhung. Something unseen took hold of your bones and shook out of you the urgent cry that pierced our hushed early morning hallway. We tried to save your wilting heart, but worn by years of births and chores and grief, that weary muscle at last relented. Like a rose in falling sun, you closed, and our rooftop stirred with sounds of waking sparrows. Thank you.
Thank you, Belinda. Beautiful. Really great to hear that. And we're thrilled to have you with us. Absolutely excellent. Okay, I'm going to finish the set by reading a few poems. And one of the other exciting things that's happened at Liquid Amber Press, not only have we been hard at work doing lockdown poetry, but we have also republished my own book, This Shuttered Eye. Some of you may know that it was initially published by Girls on Key, which have now unfortunately closed their publishing arm. So we thought, well, we need to keep it out there, and so Pauline and Dave have produced this very handsome edition of This Shuttered Eye. So I'm really pleased to have it in circulation. Now, because it is largely an ekphrastic collection, I'm just going to read a couple of poems from that, but with the pictures to boot, because hey, that would be fun. So let me just share my screen again, and if I can just sorry, let's try again. Share the screen. Okay, if I come here. Okay, all right, so here on the right hand side is an amazing image by Walter Sickert. It's called The Raising of Lazarus, and it was originally done on wallpaper and then was later transferred to canvas. But, you know, obviously a highly sort of suggestive image. You can just see the picture of the figure working on what might be the body, the sort of swathed body of Lazarus. Can everyone see that okay? Can someone give me a thumbs up? Yep, okay. Raising Lazarus. This is an old story, an artist's hands manipulating, working to ease the marbled corpse rebirthed through mottled shadows. A dangerous pulse of vermilion that glints in oblivion's moor. We say we know how this will end, this evocation, nightmare or dream, this cusp of dissolution, finally, an almost touch. But canvas after canvas, word after word, we try again, imagining the mastery of art over evanescence, the possibility of form rising from the murk of miasma, and always impenetrable space beyond, the edges of canvas, or deep within its folds, the suction of encroaching dark. Okay, here's a very different kind of work of art. You probably recognise this. I saw it at an exhibition at the National Gallery of Victoria a few years ago, but it is from the Hermitage family portrait, of course. What else? In their best Flemish clothes, lace ruffs and jewellery, brocaded fabric, this young couple gaze, intense, hopeful, out of the canvas. They lean toward me as though all this were as fast as the shuttering of a lens. A bonneted child, dandled on his mother's knee, looks behind and up. He has no need to look my way. These parents are vibrant with youth and prosperity, connection to each other, pride in a child. Like every family, holy in their ordinariness, they hold the unfolding generations, squirming in richly upholstered arms. Look, we have made this future. It belongs to us. Only consider, and here, of course, the benefit of hindsight, their willingness to pause, to sit while a painter composes, takes their likenesses in pigment and brushstroke, placing them lovingly inside the rushes of time. Look carefully, hold to the slipperiness of this moment. It will not always be like this. Here's another mood yet again. Edward Hopper. Who doesn't love Edward Hopper's play with light and women at windows? So here she is, woman at a window. An older woman perhaps at a window. Old west-facing boards warp in relentless summer heat, the rolling in of cloud and wind, perfume of dust. Weathering eyewear, heavy on my skin, deep in my joints, the drumbeats of time, finding myself still here through persistent nights and unfolding days. A sudden angle might fall across these watching eyes, an unexpected generosity of light. If you look carefully, you can see the peel of paint, an architecture of lines no longer plumb, a woman breathing in the world, relief of salty air, swirl of curtains, diaphanous as clouds, catching breath, drawing me on. And finally, just a little bit closer to home, some of you will recognise this piece of street art, if you like, which is from my home campus of Victoria University on Ballarat Road. And this is a piece of art by the artist known as Baby Gorilla. That's how she's known. So this is wonderful image on an otherwise pretty drab looking brown brick building, but wow, we're really flying when we look at this. Ballarat Road, of course, is dusty and busy and noisy and everything, and here is this, this great young woman. Watch me fly, catching the breeze, smart heels in mid-air. Cornrow girl in a trench coat, I'm reading this book. Your pages are rippling. Watch me making sense of this world, code by cryptic code. Here is my body's window, open to the bellows of the city, the pulse of its arteries. Read me, listen to me. I'm talking to all of us. So, just to let you know that this Shuttered Eye is available. It's out there. It's really, and I'm really, really pleased with that issue.